This happened to me during a business trip that I took last year for work. I arrived at the hotel and picked up my key to the room, which my company had paid for. It was a nice-looking hotel on the inside, though a bit smaller than most other hotels. There were maybe 20 rooms total and only 3 stories. My room was on the top floor, so I took the elevator up and started making my way down the hallway. But just as I did that, the neighboring room's door opens and a man steps into the hall. He greeted me, mentioning that he was my neighbor, and held his hand out, gesturing for a handshake. I confusingly shook it and told him my name, then started making my way into the room. As I walked in, I noticed that he went back into his room as well and shut the door. I took a quick shower, then turned off all the lights. I laid there trying to sleep for almost 30 minutes before hearing the neighbor's door creak open, followed by seeing their shadow walk by my door. But they stopped just before they passed my room. Through the sliver of light under the door, I could see their shadow get closer for a second, before backing away and continuing down the hall. This obviously creeped me out, so I got up and made sure that all the locks were secured on the door, then went back to bed. I was in there for maybe minutes, went through the water splashing. I heard the distinct beep sound of the electronic door lock unlocking. I knew it was too late for it to be the cleaning services, so my mind instantly jumped to the strange man staying in the room next to mine. But I didn't know how he could possibly have a key card that could unlock my door. Not knowing what to do, I stood there silently as I listened to the door slowly open and then close, followed by footsteps walking past the bathroom door. With the shower running, I knew that they had to know that I was in there, which terrified me even more. I tried to quietly step out of the shower as to not alarm them. Then I quietly put on a pair of pants that I had laying on the ground. Making sure to lock it, I leaned my ear up against the bathroom door and listened. I could hear a faint noise, sounding like someone was searching through one of my bags. Of course, I wanted to confront them, but for all I knew, they could have a gun or a knife. In the moment, I really just felt helpless and frozen in fear. I took a deep breath, then started banging on the bathroom door, yelling for help as loud as I could. I could hear the man's frantic footsteps run past the door and back into the hallway. I quickly got out and closed the front door, locking it shut, then ran to the nightstand to get my phone and dialed 911 with my shaky hands. Once they were on their way, I called the front desk to let them know as well. Of course, by the time they got here, the man was already gone, but thankfully the police found him in his car a few hours later. I'm not sure if he even got any jail time for his actions though, because they couldn't prove his motive to be harmful. I honestly think he was trying to kidnap me or something though, as I don't know any other reason why he would go into the room when he knew that I was in there. But I guess we'll never know for sure what would have happened. Back when I was 18 and in my senior year of high school, I used to play softball for our school's team. That year our team was really good, and we were invited to an invitational tournament in Las Vegas. We stayed in a hotel about 15 minutes from the city itself. It was around 9 p.m. when we arrived, and we divided into groups to stay in our respective hotel rooms. 3 of my close friends and I decided to stay together in one room. It was around 9 p.m. when we arrived, and we divided into groups to stay in our respective hotel rooms. 3 of my close friends and I decided to stay together in one room. About an hour later, after we had all settled in and were winding down for the night before our early morning game, the phone in our room rang. It startled us because I had stayed in many hotels before and had never experienced the hotel phone ringing at night. We looked at each other, wide awake and a bit nervous. We agreed that I should answer it. I picked up the phone and said hello. The voice on the other end, a man's almost whispering voice, claimed that we hadn't paid for our room and insisted that one of us needed to come down to the lobby immediately to settle the payment. Alarm bells went off in my head because I knew this couldn't be true. I had seen our coach pay for the room less than 2 hours ago. Why would they give us room keys if the room wasn't paid for? Plus, it was highly unprofessional for the hotel to call us so late at night about payment. I told the man that we had already paid for the room, but he ignored me and insisted that someone had to come down or there would be consequences. I felt a chill down my spine and firmly replied that we would stay in our room until someone from the hotel came to discuss this in person. I hung up the phone, feeling uneasy. I explained the situation to my friends, who also felt uneasy, but agreed that there was no way we hadn't paid. We decided to try to put it out of our minds and go to sleep. The phone rang a few more times during the night, but no one came to kick us out of our room. The next morning, we told our coach what had happened. He spoke to the front desk staff about the payment issue, but they had no record of any late-night call to our room. They even checked security cameras but found nothing unusual. We never heard anything more about it during the rest of our stay. It was a disturbing experience that left me with many questions. Who called us? Why did they want one of us to leave the room alone in the middle of the night? How did they know which room we were in? The more I think about it, the more unnerved I become. I'm just grateful that we trusted our instincts and chose to stay safely in our room that night. This story takes place about 5 years ago when I used to work at a hotel near where I live. It's sort of a smaller hotel, and I was able to get the job because my parents are good friends with the owners. What I did was pretty much work behind the front desk and help people check in and check out. Of course, I did some other things too, but that was my main job. When I first got the job, I was working overnights, which were generally pretty quiet, especially in the middle of the night, and I had some free time. I didn't really like working in the middle of the night, but I did like that it was usually really easy. There would rarely be people checking in or needing anything from me super late at night. One night, I was working. It was about 1 in the morning. It was really quiet, and it had been for quite some time. I heard the front door to the hotel open and shut and looked behind the front desk to see who was coming in. I saw a man walking in, and he was walking towards me at the front desk. When he arrived, I said hi to him, and he told me he was interested in getting a room. I started saying what I always say to people checking in, and the man's phone started to ring. He suddenly put his hand up and told me sorry, but he had to take the call. He then walked past me towards the hallway where the rooms were and disappeared. I heard him talking on the phone as he seemingly walked down the hallway. I remained at my desk waiting for the man to return and didn't think too much of it, but several minutes went by and he didn't come back. I also didn't hear anything more of the man. I didn't hear him talking or walking around nearby. I turned and looked to the monitors we had behind the front desk that I could watch. They basically had every hallway in the hotel under surveillance. I scanned around them and I wasn't seeing the man at all. Then I noticed one of the cameras seemed to be out of order. On one of the floor-level hallways, the camera had gone completely black. I thought this was strange, especially since the man had gone down in that direction. I decided to leave my front desk and see what was going on down there. The place was completely silent and I couldn't hear anything. I walked out and went around the corner to go down the hallway where the man had gone. It was a hallway where we had some vending machines and a couple of meeting rooms, but no guest rooms. That led to an area where we had stairs, an exit, and other hallways going to the left with guest rooms. As I looked down the long hallway, I didn't see anything at first, but as I slowly walked down, I heard some noise. I kept walking closer to it. Once I reached about halfway down the end of the hall, I noticed the door to the stairs and exit of the building open up. I froze where I was and watched 2 men dressed in all black with ski masks included walk out and down the hall where the guest rooms were. One of the men looked over at me and immediately noticed me. The other guy did as well. I was halfway down the hallway and had nowhere to hide. All I could do was turn to go back to my front desk. When I did, I saw one of the men start to run after me. I sprinted back to the desk. The front desk was in a sort of enclosed area for our own safety, and I knew if I could make it back there, I'd be a lot safer. Once I got back, I closed the door and locked it, then called for the police. The police arrived and tried opening the door to the area that I was in. He then went towards the front of the desk. I ducked down under it as far as I could to be out of sight in case he had a weapon or something. I heard a few bangs on the window and then a few bangs on the door. After that, it was silent for a while. I waited there hoping that the police would arrive soon. Less than a minute later, the police arrived at the hotel and walked in the front door. I told them what was going on and they ended up searching the entire building. Unfortunately, the men that had been there were gone. After looking at the security tapes and examining the hotel, it was determined that the guy who had walked in the hotel and received the phone call had walked down the hall and left out the exit of the stairwell, letting the masked men into the hotel and covering the camera with black tape in the process. I think all the men had planned the job to rob one of our guests at the hotel or something. Either way, it gives me the creeps to think about.